Good evening, everybody. It's Alan Lowe, and here we are again for episode 14 of the I Told You show. Tonight, with my co-host Kandi, we're going to go a little bit national and maybe a little local thrown in too. So stay tuned. You don't want to miss this show. And we're back. So, like I said, we're going to go a little bit national tonight. What do you think about that, Kandi?
I think it's great.
Our
Guess
next
what we're gonna
president
talk
right
about?
there. Our next president.
Number 47,
Hmm.
God willing.
I don't even want to go down the different road. You know, I have friends that are Democrats and all of that stuff, and I don't want politics to separate anybody.
Me either.
But I mean, honestly,
Yeah.
we need to have this.
I gotta talk about Donald Trump. But first of all, I want to say that the early voting numbers that are out right now,
Oh,
Palm Coast, Flagler County, man, we are kicking hiney right now. I mean,
Yes.
for real, we're doing so good.
You know what I love to see about it? It's killing the mail-in ballot.
Yeah.
The in-person, because I hate the mail-in ballot.
Yeah,
thing.
unless you have to do that.
I mean,
Yes.
for
There's some
cer-
people that have to.
Yes, for certain people that have whatever, military or they have a job where they can't get to it or they have a handicap of some type, 100%.
Right.
But just because
That's what
you're too
it's
lazy
for.
to go stand in line, no.
Right, and that's been part of the problem. But our early voting numbers are out the roof right now in
Yeah.
Flagler County and Palm Coast. I can't wait to see Election Day coming up, what our actual full numbers end up being as far as full voter turnout altogether. It's going to be amazing. I think people realize how important the election is this year for sure.
Well, if I remember correctly, in the first 2 days of early voting, there were more people that voted than voted during the primary.
Right, I saw that too.
Yeah.
And we worked so hard for those numbers back then, and we couldn't get them then, but we have them now, and it matters. It matters a lot.
Yeah, it
Every
does.
single
It
vote matters
does.
a lot. And I was out running around town today doing my adulting errands, for my day off. And I can't tell you how many Trump hats and Trump t-shirts I saw today. And of course, I commented on them because it was just so overwhelming how many I saw today. And that's when I grabbed my mug and I'm like, that's what we're going to talk about tonight.
Yeah, and I think that mug. Let me put that back on screen here a little bit for a second. I think that's your coffee mug, right?
Yeah, it's a coffee mug. And you can also steep tea in it too because it has a lid.
Look at that. That's so cool.
Yeah, one of my technicians at Ritchie Cadillac got me that back in, I want to say it was 2016. He got me that mug when the election was going on then because I was such an avid Trump supporter. I have been for, I want to say over 2 decades plus. My kids will all tell you that. Because I actually did grow up in a middle class neighborhood, and I actually did live in a middle class neighborhood where people did take care of their grass and were proud of their lawns, actually for real. And I actually grew up in California, in Riverside, California, which was probably about 30 minutes from March Air Force Base. And as a child, all the years that Reagan was president, I remember going on different trips to different places, and we always passed March Air Force Base, and we always saw the president's plane there, which belonged to Ronald Reagan because everybody knows he was from California. So
Yeah.
I just remember having the most awe feeling seeing that plane sitting there all the time. So I always paid attention to him, even back then, Ronald Reagan, when I was a child, because I just found him interesting, and I just felt like he was a true patriot and a true American. And that's where my love for Trump comes from, because back when he was doing his show The Apprentice, I saw that kind of in him in that aspect. And then I remember seeing an interview somewhere that he did, I don't remember which one it was, and he was talking about people telling him he should run for office because of his ideas and how successful he is and how he gets his messages out. And he said, I would only run for president if I thought the United States was going into turmoil. Well,
Here we are.
knock, 2016.
Yeah.
So I've been a supporter of Trump before he ever ran for office. So I don't have any kind of
I
like,
think the show that you saw, that was actually the Oprah show.
Was it
I
Oprah?
think she was in. I think he was interviewed back then by Oprah, who, all those people used to be his friend,
Right.
until
He started going against some of the things that
right,
they allow.
the foolishness.
Right. Right. So I've been a Trump supporter for decades, literally before he ever ran for president. I like him. I know he's bombastic sometimes. I don't always agree with how he says stuff per se, but I agree with his policies. And
Well, that's in the end, the policies are
we
what
all have to live with
we
the
have
policies.
to live with it, right? Yeah, that's the important thing. Back, well, first off, you're exactly right. I think between Reagan's time and now Trump, there really wasn't a president that you
Comes
could
to
hang.
mind.
Yeah, that really was that way. But of interest was I used to be the head of the dive rescue team down at the Daytona Speedway when the backstretch wall wasn't concrete; it was a dirt mound, and
Wow.
I got replaced by concrete. But for one of those races, for one of the Daytona 500 races, Bush came in Air Force One and landed at the Daytona airport. So you could see this massive, jet coming in,
Yeah.
and the United States emblem on the side of it. And it was really, really cool. So same plane probably that you saw
Yeah.
for Reagan.
Well,
So-
I'm attached to the Bushes too because I don't know if this is public knowledge, but I used to be a police officer. I'm retired law enforcement out of Tennessee. And when I was pregnant with my son, my youngest child, who is now 23, so go back, I guarded President Bush.
Did you?
I actually worked with the Secret Service. Yeah, I had
Wow.
just had found out that I was expecting, I think like a week before, and we'd already been through the Secret Service. You have to go through a bunch of stuff, more than being a regular police officer. Trust me, they know what color panties that you wear before they let you anywhere near the president.
sure.
I don't know what's going on now because it wasn't like that before, but we guarded President Bush and George Walker Bush. They're gonna hear from us soon after 9/11. Remember that George, that Bush. And I remember him poking fun at the Secret Service men because he walked up to one of them, and the Secret Service men, their uniforms are supposed to be creased, pressed,
Sure.
pants long where the bottom of your hem hits the back of your shoe. All the gentlemen know what I'm talking about. Well, this guy didn't get that memo, and his pants were probably an inch or two too short.
Oh, high waters.
Oh yeah, and President Bush noticed, and he walked over to him, and he didn't say it where many people could hear him, but since I was standing right next to them, I heard the whole thing. And he leaned over. You know how they always lean over and they say something as they're shaking people's hands? Well, that's what he did. And he said, "Do I not pay you enough to get proper pants?"
Ooh.
And I didn't know whether I was supposed to laugh or was supposed to act like I didn't hear it. And then he looked in my eyes, and I just started busting out laughing exactly at the same time he did. Thank God. He was making a joke, but he was literally like saying, "Dude, you need longer pants." So I've been around the presidency a little bit. I'm not really that important, but I feel like it's like the biggest, hugest, most important job that any man or woman can
Oh,
have.
sure.
And I have never felt like there has been a woman yet ready for the office. And I'm going to say this, and some people are going to like it and some people aren't, but that's why we do this. I thought Hillary Clinton was pretty close until I found out about the phones being broken and the Benghazi stuff and all that, the lying. I lost a little respect for her with her marital issues. But like I said, people work that out when they love each other, they let that go.
Right.
But then I found out about all the other stuff. So my thought about her being closest one ready is no longer obviously now.
Right.
So we haven't had a woman that's ready for that job yet. It's a huge job, and we're more emotional than men. So we have to have a lot more experiences and different things to take on that job, in my opinion.
See, now if I was to say that women were too emotional, we would be getting emails here in a minute.
You would be. But women, like we were talking earlier, women, like we have a pot of things going on in our brain all the time that we're working on. Some of us have 3, some have 5 or 6. Always things in our mind that are going on that we're working on, and they get done, but they don't get done. Men work on one thing at a time. Women think of things differently, in my opinion, than men do. I mean, Kamala Harris hasn't even had a child of her own and raised a child of her own to know what that's like to be a mother.
Right.
She's married to somebody that had teenage children when she married them, so she didn't even get to do it halfway by having stepchildren, or you know what I'm trying to
Yep.
say.
Yep.
So to me, in that aspect, she shouldn't have anything to say about any of the things to do with child rearing. She doesn't have any idea about it because, and she didn't really grow up in a middle class neighborhood. I mean, the things that she says about herself are things that are not true.
Right.
And then she wants to base policy on things that are not true. So it's just all fact and fiction in the air to me.
And you know, in the higher level, well, actually all the way down, I guess, in politics, that a lot of stuff is said to tie themselves to the audience that's listening to them at that moment, and it may not be true what they're saying. And really, it's, you know, it's different if you have a conscience, if you have, you know, the real desire to do the right thing. You usually don't really get too far in politics because you have to be willing to say and do things that just aren't right. Now, you know, when I ran for mayor and so forth, had I got in and been elected and got into office, I honestly believe, now I'm not sitting there, so I don't, but I honestly believe that I don't think that the way and the platform and the things that I said that I ran on, I would do differently once I got there. If there were things that had to be done differently, there would have to be a huge explanation and a bunch of transparency
As to why.
As to why, exactly.
And that's locally, bringing to local.
Yes.
Neither Cornelia or Mike can stop the development that's going on.
Of course not.
Everybody in town that hasn't voted yet needs to realize that, because there are contracts and things that have been approved for a decade that are just now getting started for various reasons. We cannot stop those things.
No.
A moratorium would only stop any more signing of any new things being approved. So all the things I just spoke about that were approved in the prior decade are going to still keep moving forward. So everybody needs to understand that. Mike can't promise a moratorium, and neither can Cornelia, because like I just told you what the circumstances are. That's just the honest to God's truth. So we're really voting for a mayor that's going to bring us what we need here and represent us how we want to be represented. Because like I said, the thing that we all want is the development to stop, and that's not going to happen.
Right.
So you're really voting on the other two items here.
But it can be controlled.
It can be controlled by only giving so many permits out. The idea that you had, like all those things, we just need somebody a group of people, not one, a group of that are willing to work towards an end, to get to that end of somehow figuring that out.
Right.
So you're really going to be voting locally on who you want representing you and who can bring what we need here. And what do we need here? It's not more houses.
No.
I mean, we need jobs here. I drive to St. Augustine to work. I have now for almost 5 years. And before that, I drove to Daytona for 5 years to work. So I would love to work in Palm Coast, especially in my field, and find somewhere that I can make what I make out there and do it in my own community. So I want somebody that's going to bring stuff like that here, that already has the connections. We don't have time for somebody to make connections, go meet people, pitch ideas. We don't have time for that. We need somebody that's already been doing that.
Already has boots on the ground.
Already boots on the ground, already ready to go and move that stick forward. So you already know what I'm going to say, who I voted for that very reason.
Well, you know, it's interesting on the whole local level, because for the first time in 4 years, 5 years, something like that, I'm not voting for myself.
And this is the first time actually that I haven't voted for you, actually, now that you mentioned that, because you didn't realize how long we'd actually known each other until this last time you started running, and I was more involved this time because I had time to be.
Right.
I was involved the first time way back when. We just you were busy. Ed had you everywhere, so I didn't really get to see you all that much. But yeah, so I've known
Yeah.
Alan a lot longer than everybody thinks too.
Yeah, but it was funny, when I looked down at the ballot, the first name on the ballot, was Trump, and so first circle I filled in. So yeah, I voted for Trump, but of course I was going to. But it was interesting because in the past my name has been on the ballot at the same time as Trump, and I thought that was pretty cool.
That is pretty neat.
You know,
I think it's great.
I think it's really cool.
I think anybody that runs for office has a lot of cojones, if everybody knows what I mean, trying to be kid friendly here. I don't want to run for office. I seriously gave it a good thought. I had a lot of people ask me, but I for the reason that you said earlier, I'm too honest. I can't tell you, yeah, I'll help you with this if I get elected and take money from you, knowing in my head I'm never going to really do that for you because
Right.
I'm lying to somebody.
Right.
Or I'm telling the public, oh, I'll never do any favors, but I'm telling them I'm doing them favors and I'm taking the money. Like, it's really one way or the other to me in my mind because they're going to expect stuff from you. And I know you have to have money to get your name out there, to get out there and run. But I feel like if you do it the right way by starting years and years or not even planning on ever running and just getting out in the public and knowing people, it comes organically where you shouldn't have to spend all kinds of money to really get your name out there, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well,
So-
one of the neat things about having run, I know the games that are played, and I refused to play them. I never took money from any developers or anything like that. But one of the interesting things is, in all of that time, I built up a good following of people. Most of the people that watch this show, and I'm really proud to say that those are actually the more intelligent people because they can get into a deep discussion about the local issues and they know what they're talking about.
Right, and I like that too.
Yeah.
I've met a lot of people through this along the way too. I've met a lot of great people. I've met a lot of people. I have a lot more close friends now. And it's nice to be able to sit down with people and have like a conversation like this. Like, I don't think people understand that when you and I sit down, we didn't have this conversation before you hit record. We were talking about something completely different for like 20 minutes. And then you asked me what we wanted to talk about. And I sat Mr. Trump up here and you said, oh, okay. And
Yeah.
that's where we are. So
Yeah,
the
we
best
don't.
things are
Nothing,
organic. You
nothing
can't
here is
force it.
scripted.
Right.
Nothing is scripted.
Except for when we were doing the candidates, we did have
Well,
questions.
we had questions.
Yeah, in case they wanted
But
to
they were called in by the
people,
audience. They
or
weren't
on Facebook,
yes,
social media. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought we were fair about that.
I think so.
I thought we were fair about that. I do feel bad because there were people that I was speaking to on a regular basis before the campaigning stuff all really kicked in, and they had people in their ear and I had people in my ear, and we kind of got severed along the way. And somebody that happened to personally really like a lot, I just don't think they're ready for office right now. Doesn't have anything bad to say about the person. I just think they need a couple more years under their belt here. I can tell you the difference between me being here 3 years and me being here 10 years is like, I feel like
yeah.
I live in a completely different city than I moved to, just because of the things that you find out after you've lived here. And they're not all bad. They're not all good. No place is perfect. We just want to fix it and make it the best it can be with what we have. I don't feel like they've been working with the most of what they have. That's why we brought all the flooding and the swales and all that stuff to the attention, because after my yard started doing that, I'm like, what's going on here? And they're all kind of connected.
And that was in the news again. Was it Channel 13 the other day?
I heard about that.
Yeah, had come and
I'm very
interviewed
proud
some
about
more
that.
people. Sure.
And I can say that, the flooded in Flagler County really has grown. It's got over 1,000 people on the page, especially after this last hurricane.
Yeah, put a shout out to the page so people know what you're talking
I'm
about.
gonna. It's on Facebook. It's called Flooded in Flagler County. Started by me over a year ago after a couple new homes were built, one next to and one behind, and one next to me. And I'd already lived in my home through a couple hurricanes, and then all of a sudden we had a tropical storm, and my backyard filled up with water like it was a pond, and I couldn't understand what happened because I hadn't changed anything in my yard. And then I realized it was the new places that were built. And anyway, that's kind of how the page came to fruition. So most of you that are new on the page just had the experience that I had with Milton this time around. Wasn't pleasant, was it?
Yeah.
Not pleasant at all. So we're trying to bring attention to that still and try to come up with a fix for those of us that are having that problem. And the city, I have to give them some prompts. They did hire a lot more swell people. They put a lot more money towards stormwater, drainage and stuff like that for the next budget. They really have. We got a couple more swell crews. We're going to have a canal crew now, and I think that has a lot to do with your fight that you were working on with keeping the canals dredged, because people don't realize when the canals aren't dredged, they can't hold as much volume. It's like a cup that you have. If you take two same size cups and you put a rock in one and not on the other one, and you put water in both of them, the one without the rock is going to hold more water than the one with the rock, because it has more volume of space to fill. So that's why the canals need to be dredged, and it's all part of our stormwater fees and our stormwater maintenance. So
and the flow,
the flow, everything has
if
to
you're
go.
if you're running water down a nice dredged bottom, right, the water will run smoothly. If you're
Right.
running it down a washboard, you're going to get turbulent. It's going to run slow. Things aren't going to work right. And let's face it, our canals were opened. The dams to the intercoastal that where the water comes from for our canals
Right.
were opened in 1973. From 1973 to today, the canals have not been dredged.
Right.
Fully dredged.
And
There's been some spot dredging, but not fully dredged.
And then this is the one I love. I love when people say this one. But the canals and the swells were all built to hold this much water. They were built to hold this much water. Yeah, they were, when they were all pitched, cleaned, and perfectly drained out of like new.
Mm-hmm.
They held more volume. They were pitched right. I mean, Lynn Stevens is trying to catch up and get the ditches and all that stuff done. I mean, it's been neglected for a while, and people don't know the things that we know because they haven't dug and found out all this stuff. But the stormwater maintenance has been neglected for how many years would you say? I know I've been here 10.
So longer than that.
Right.
The
12, 14.
I think longer than that. The swale in front of my house, and the house I live in was built in 1985, has not been maintained. I've maintained it, but it hasn't come and been,
Like done.
dug down and everything since 1985. What I find interesting is when I first moved down here, I went to work with my dad. I've said this before, but I think it's worth saying again.
Yeah.
When we built a house, my dad was a single family home and an actual custom home builder. That doesn't mean you get to pick the color of your carpet. That means you picked your house, and he built whatever house you wanted, not a bunch of models to pick from and whatever. But at any rate, when we were getting everything final graded, the house is built, everything's going, the back then it was ITT. So ITT or the county, I'm not sure which group actually came out. I don't remember anymore. But they set up a transit, a survey machine, and they checked for the slope of the swale so that everything would flow in the proper direction of all the drainage, the culverts and the ditches and the rivers and everything. Well, somewhere along the line after that, and I don't know when it changed, it switched from flowing water to percolating water. And obviously, when the percolation thing, it doesn't percolate through clay. Some of the areas of Palm Coast are nothing but clay.
Right.
And they need to go back, reslope reslope the swales and get it back to a flowing system.
Right. And that's what when everybody goes, well, it was built for this, it was built for that. Yes, it was. But it was built for that when it's kept in pristine condition. And then you add more homes, more drainage, because concrete drains to the swales, not like the trees that suck it up. So, you got a lot more drainage coming off of the same property per se, but it's more drainage not being soaked up as much. So I think Teresa Ponteri had a great idea. Wasn't the last meeting, one before that, where she said that maybe the city should start buying some of the infill lots that are still open in the P section and the problem areas, to use those as like retention pond
As
areas.
watersheds.
As watersheds. I think that's a phenomenal idea. The city will still own the property. I think that's a great idea. So I think that's one.
And I think it's necessary.
Right,
We have to have some
They
way
should have
to
done
have
it
the
before.
watershed. Yeah, there should have been.
And the developers should know that they need to add drainage between the properties. If they're going to grade the property the way they're grading them, which is what the city is telling them to do, conscionably they know that they need to put drainage between
Yeah.
the homes. I mean, I
Yeah.
have people that come and stay at the resort I work at for a week or two when their houses are being finished down here, or they're going through closing down here. I can't tell you how many times this conversation has came up about the way the yards are graded here and how low their house is or how high the one next door is and why doesn't it have gutters and why doesn't it have drainage. And I'm like, you have asked the right person, because I can tell you all about it. So this is a topic that comes up not only here but in St. Augustine as well, and people are starting to find out. So somebody's going to need to do the right thing so we don't get a bad reputation and people don't want to buy here and we can't sell our houses here.
Yeah, I agree.
You know?
And I'm not sure that it's so that we don't get a bad reputation. I think it might be at the stage so we don't get a worse reputation.
Right. They need
we
to
need to
fix
get
it.
one of fixing. And
They need to
we
fix it.
really do. And I'm hoping no matter who gets in at this stage, because a lot of them are saying the same things, that they actually
They want to fix it.
but they actually do it. You know, and to your point earlier, you know, like either of the people that get in to be mayor, the fact is that it takes 3 votes out of 5 votes to get anything to pass. No one person can stand there and say, I'm going to do this.
Right.
And they also cannot fire staff. You know, everything has to go. The staff is under control of the city manager, not under the control of the city council. You could have the worst employee in the world, and the city council is powerless to fire that person. Now they can make a recommendation to city manager, and city manager can make up their mind whether to do it or not. But you can't. So candidates that are standing up saying, you know, my first day in office, I'm going to fire this guy and I'm going to fire that guy and this guy's got to go, and it ain't happening.
Right. And that's they count on the new people here
Yeah.
not knowing that.
Yeah.
They count. So if you ever need to know anything, this is the Palm Coast Encyclopedia over here. Alan can tell you anything about Palm Coast.
Well,
That's
I've
what
been here
drew
a
me to
couple of
Alan
years.
yeah. How long have you been? 40 something now,
41
right?
years. Yeah.
I've been here 10. Yeah.
This
so.
March will be 42. Scary, actually.
You're
But-
aging yourself and I'm aging myself as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
I just want to say I love Palm Coast still. I'm not
Of
against
course.
development.
That's
I
why
love
we're
the
doing
new
this.
shops. I love the new restaurants, but I don't want some better jobs.
Yeah.
We need better jobs here.
And,
We don't need any more homes right now.
But that's why we fight. That's why we fight so hard and we want so much. It's not because we hate the city. It's not because we don't like, you know, the beauty and everything. We want to preserve it, make it better. And I'd like my kids who have moved away from Palm Coast, I'd like them to move back and say, wow, I should have never left. This was really a great city.
Right.
But unfortunately, they already have left, and there's not much enticement to bring them back because, like you said, you have to travel so far to get a really good paying job.
Right. And it's just, it doesn't make any sense.
No.
It has to have something to do with the business aspect here, because I don't understand why we don't have more of the types of businesses like they have in St. Augustine per se here in Palm Coast and in
Yeah.
Flagler Beach.
Well, because they
they
ran a
want
lot
to
of
put
them off.
homes everywhere.
Yeah.
But people have to work somewhere and be able to go to the grocery store and actually be able to get into a doctor within a reasonable amount of time and get lab work and not sit there all day long and get to know the person next to you because you've been there for 4 hours. Like,
Yeah.
that's just unacceptable at this point. Like,
Well, there was another hospital that was supposed to be built actually right down the street from the studio here, and that went down the tubes. So, you know, competition is what everybody needs, you know.
Right.
And I'm not saying anything bad about Advent Health. Honestly, I'm not saying anything good about Advent Health either because I have my own opinion. But competition would have made it better.
yeah,
But
competition
we didn't
makes everything better.
get it. Yeah.
Makes
but-
everybody try to do their very, very best and be their very, very best. And you just get the best out of it. So I just want to say good luck to everybody before Tuesday comes. I appreciate everybody running. I really am ecstatic about the voter turnout right now.
it's amazing.
So proud of everybody. I'm proud of our little city. We're making our name for ourselves because Flagler's been on the top of early voting ever since it started. So we're usually at the bottom. So it's nice to be at the top.
Now,
Yeah.
one thing I would have liked to have seen more is our local Republican groups and committees and whatever is get the Trump signs out. You know, it's too late now.
Yeah.
But there was, in the
There
past,
wasn't very many out at all.
in the past, you couldn't turn around without seeing, Trump signs. And now you're hard pressed to find one. Now,
They're
I went
few and
down to
far
Volusia County because my son lives down there now, and they're everywhere. The signs are everywhere, but not here.
Wonder why. We'll never know the answer to that
No.
question.
We won't, unfortunately.
Next president. Right there
Right
he
there.
is.
Yep. Now, one other thing before we go, because we're actually at a half hour right now, but before we go, I'd like to say that, as far as the amendments go, every amendment, in my opinion, people should vote no. The city referendum, obviously, I'm in a legal battle against that.
Mm-hmm.
But if we go beyond that, you've got the Amendment 3 and 4. All these amendments are going to change the Constitution of the state or the city charter or the Constitution of the state. I don't really think we want to play with that. The Constitution was written really well by people that really knew what they were doing without this special agenda, and now we're trying to put special agendas into the Constitution for the state of Florida.
Yeah, and I get a lot of calls about that too.
And I can't tell anybody how to vote. I can tell you I voted no on every single one of them, and if I was to do it again, I would vote no on every single one of them because I think we could legislate the answers rather than change them in the Constitution.
Right.
Because, if we change them in the Constitution, the legislature has no control over ordering it. For instance, if the Amendment 4 is which one's the I don't know. The
3?
marijuana amendment, I think it's 3. So many times back and forth now with the guests that we had in here. But legalizing marijuana doesn't equal freedom. It equals government control. You can't grow it yourself. You can't do any of the things that people think that you can do with it. And the legislature, once it's passed, they, in the wording of it, there's no limit as to where you can use it. So, you can be smoking anywhere you want.
Yeah, and some people don't really want to smell that.
No, I don't want to smell.
I know a lot of people that really don't want to smell that.
I don't like the
All
smell
I
of
do
it
is
at all.
when people email me, message me, or call me about any of the amendments, is I read the amendment and then I say, I interpreted it as it's saying this. If you agree with that, then you vote no. If you don't agree with that, then you want to vote yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, it's your decision because everybody's different. Everybody thinks of things differently. Everybody's had a different background and different experiences, like all those things.
Right.
I don't know any two people that will ever think the same way about anything.
Now, the way I look at them isn't what they're saying so much as I just can't see us changing the Constitution for special agenda items.
But see,
and I
you
don't
look
care
at
if
it
you're in
different.
favor or if you're opposed. It's still changing the
Yeah, but
Constitution.
that's not how people, unfortunately, look at it. Like,
Yeah.
you look at it like black and white like that, which that makes sense too. But the younger people want to know what it's about. Like, what is it saying? What are they asking me to choose between? That's
Well,
what,
and
that's
they
what
word
I
it in a
get.
way that is difficult.
And sometimes you can't even really understand it. And most of the times when I answer the question, everybody says that's how I interpreted it too. I just wanted to make sure I'm not reading it differently. I go, well, that's how I interpret it. So, and I don't like that. So,
Well, we only have a couple more days left, and then we'll have our new president, and
God, I hope.
and locally our new mayors and new people on city council, and Councilperson Teresa Pontieri is going to be the only person there with seniority that hopefully should be able to at least impart a little bit of seniority wisdom
Right.
upon the other people without pushing them.
She's going to be the herder.
Yeah, that's what it's
Of the
going to
new-
be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Herding
Just
cats.
like she needs another thing to do on top of everything else that she
Yeah,
already does.
Yeah. Well, I think it's going to be interesting.
I think
see
it's
what's
going to
gonna
be. It's going to be a little shaky at first because it's going to be some new people, but I
But,
think that
yeah.
they'll grab it together. I think they'll get it together pretty quick and move
Yeah.
forward. Everybody seems to have the same mindset for the most part. Really, truly, they do. Everybody seems to have the same things they want to see changed a little bit for the most part. It's just how they want to get there
Right.
and how they
And-
want to represent getting there.
And who has the best negotiation skills and temperament and everything to get it.
Right.
To
People
get
have
it
to
there.
remember that.
Yeah.
It's easy to vote for who you like. Sometimes that's not who you vote for.
Right.
Sometimes you have to vote for the person that you think is best for the job and not be the person that you like the most out of all the people. That's voting.
Mm-hmm.
It's not
It
a
is.
popularity contest. It's not homecoming king and homecoming queen where
No,
it
this is your
doesn't
taxes.
really affect
This is your
anybody or anything.
pocketbook.
This is like other people's money too, not just your own that you're voting. You're voting for other people as well as yourself. You got to really think about that when you vote.
Yeah.
Yeah, some people didn't like Donald Trump and they've switched over and they're going to vote for him, and some people probably still don't like him. But the other option is just not going to. Our country is not going to exist. It's the same
no.
at all as it was when we were children. If he doesn't,
It's sorry to have to say that, but I
it's
really
not
feel
even
that
the
way.
same.
Yeah.
The kids don't even trick or treat anymore hardly. We didn't get any kids again. Like
Yeah.
they're too scared to go to, their parents are too afraid to let them trick or treat at people's houses because of what people do to candy and what people do to kids nowadays. Isn't that sad? I don't want my grandkids
We've
growing
lost
up.
our compass.
We have lost our compass. We shouldn't have to do trunk or treat
No.
for our kids to do that. I mean, really?
No. I remember as a kid, walking all these streets in my neighborhood and filling up a pillowcase full of candy.
Yep.
Then,
Never
I got the
even thought
cavities
about
to
it.
prove it.
Yeah. Yeah, our kids can't even do that anymore.
No.
You
So
can't even let them walk down the street anymore by themselves. It's terribly sad.
So let's go ahead, Candy, give a final thought. And with realizing that our next show will be after the election,
Yep.
what do
I
you
just
think?
want to reiterate that I am so proud of our county. We have really had the best voter turnout I can ever think of since
Yeah.
I've been here. And even though there's two sides, it just seems everybody's finally realizing that we're all in this together, and that we're just going to have to be in this together, and we're going to
Yeah.
have to get along, whether we agree to disagree or whether we agree. We're all in this together.
Yep. Well, I agree 100% with you. We're in it together, and regardless of the outcome, we're still in it together. So we
Exactly.
have to make the best of whatever happens. And I hope Trump wins because I think that's the best choice. But that's us. That's our thought.
Right.
Whatever.
Everybody's entitled to their opinion. That's why we do this show.
Yep. And so we're going to close episode 14
14.
of the I Told You show. Everybody, thank you for listening in. Please like, share. We're recording this at the Flagler Voice podcast studio. If you have a podcast you'd like to do, or if you're a business and you'd like to sponsor a show or anything along those lines, please go ahead and get a hold of us. Our website is flagler-voice.com. You'll be able to go there. It has links to YouTube. You can see all of the videos we've done, not just the I Told You show, but I think we have about 100 videos up now. So I really appreciate you watching the show, and we'll see you for episode 15, and we'll be discussing who the new president is then. Have a great week. Get out and vote.